Behind me here is a USDM S14 Zenki shell that my buddy Raul has brought over, and he wants me to convert this thing from left-hand drive to right-hand drive. Now, while a lot of guys are just importing right-hand drive Silvias from Japan, if they want to live those right-hand drive dreams, some other guys don't want to do that. They want to convert their 240SX into a right-hand drive car, which I think is pretty cool. It's a little different, unique. Like when I first got into cars, it was mostly Hondas, and you know, that was the big flex, dude. If you had a sick little like EF hatch that was right-hand drive, you'd blow everybody's minds, which I think is Raul's intention with this car. But as you can see, this is a right-hand drive cutout from a Silvia, and it's done really cleanly, actually. They've drilled out all the little spot welds needed to pull this thing out, all along the bottom on the inside, everything along the fender well, a little bit of the frame rail there. There's a guy that made a video like 14 years ago and put it here on YouTube that converted his 240SX to right-hand drive. It's super helpful, actually, if you're trying to do this for yourself. It's a really great video to watch. Shout out to that dude for making that video. I hope you're out there somewhere still enjoying your right-hand drive 240SX. But beyond that, that's kind of mostly all you have to go off of, is that one video that I found online. I've done a little bit of work doing this kind of stuff before in the past. This is my S14 Zenki, and when I was first building this car, the shell was really clean, but this tub and this seam right here were really rotted out and kind of crappy looking. So I went through the whole process of drilling out all the spot welds on this whole side of the car here in the front fender well area, pulled that whole tub out, and I went to the junkyard and found another one, and I put all this back in. But looking at it now, you can't even really tell, you know, it looks just like a normal engine bay. But aside from that, that's all the experience that I have with doing this kind of bodywork and stuff. But I think I have most of the technology that we need to get this done. So let me show you what I got. This is looking like a DeWalt commercial, but it's not, I swear. I get these knotted wire wheels. These work really well. One of the more time-consuming parts of this process, I think, is going to be cleaning everything up, and a good wire wheel is going to help you do that. I also have this small one that can go into the drill that will get into those tighter areas. Typical stuff like cutoff wheels and flap discs for whatever kind of cleaning and stuff we need, and you know, naturally you're going to need an angle grinder to do most of that. Another really important thing with these little spot weld deals is these spot weld drill bits. These things. So this goes in your drill, and that little center piece right there kind of indexes you over the spot weld, and then it collapses and spins, and then, you know, the little hole saw cuts the spot weld out, and then you can separate the two panels. To do that, I usually use something like this to bend and pry, and then obviously a hammer. And I use a center punch to mark the center of the spot weld, and then sometimes I'll go and drill a hole so this little thing indexes a little easier. Sometimes you can get away with just center punching. Sure, we're going to try all the methods on this because we have a gajillion holes to drill, as you can see just from this takeoff from the Silvia. I'm also going to use weld through primer. Once it's all, you know, said and done and welded and completed, I bought a tube of seam sealer, so I'm going to go over this whole thing and make sure it's nice and sealed up. But I think that's mostly the gist of it. Let's get started wire wheeling all these different seams. I've begun on the outside here. You can kind of see all the areas that I wire wheeled off, trying to expose all these different spot welds. These cars are layered, a bunch of stamped sheet metal together, turned it into one big beer can. We're gonna have to start from the very top and work our way down. This is the top layer here. We're gonna pop this cap off, and then that should expose most of everything that we're trying to look at for in here. Now you can see that this little edge here is kind of beat up. On most cars, people hammer this seam back to give yourself room for wheel clearance, and that's exactly what has been done to this chassis. You can see the seam is just rolled over, laying flat. I'm gonna have to pry all that stuff out of there and get that straight so I can drill all the spot welds out there. I'm gonna get started drilling some of these holes out, and we can pop this cover off of here, and that should expose pretty much everything from the outside of this top right hand corner of this firewall. Okay, there's all the spot welds drilled out. Let's see if we can pry this panel up here and pop it off. Oop, forgot one. Ah, there it is. Forgot another one. Last one, it should pop right off now. There's one panel, one of freaking 500. Let's get started on this one. Center punching, drilling, hole sawing, prying, popping it out, and get this thing done. Voila. Now with these two top caps off, you can really see kind of the inside of what we're looking for here. Since we have these side by side here, looks like we need to get this thing out because it holds the firewall to the front strut tower. But before we can do that piece, we need to get this piece off. One more right there. Okay, now we have access, and you can really see this piece a lot better now with all this stuff out of the way. So it looks like we only just have a couple spot welds on top, these two here, looks like a few on along here, and get this thing out. Almost have all these drilled out, and there's a freaking ton of them. Look at all these here, back in here, but these last two here can't really get to, so I'm gonna figure out how to like grind that out, I think, but the rest of it pretty loose. One thing about this thing is super messy, so shop vac comes in handy. Minimizes mess, and it just kind of makes this look nicer as it comes apart. My goal is to take this out as cleanly as possible, because the more care I take when I take this apart, I'm hoping will make that go in easier. Okay, I think we've about figured it out. Most everything is completely broken free now. Again, these little things are giving me trouble, so I just hammered the little chisel thing underneath there. That kind of exposes the little tack weld, so I'm gonna take this little Sawzall, try to stick it in there, and cut that stuff out. Come on, baby. Cool. Actually came out in one nice little piece. Didn't mess it up too bad. And we're in. Now we can kind of see the firewall. So we just have spot welds all along here. Actually, hold on. So we have spot welds all along in this area. A couple here. I think, yeah, should be two right here, right where these were. And then we have two up here. And then obviously all of these ones, this entire patch area right here is a part of the firewall and has to come out. But hopefully if we do all of this and the bottom and stuff, this should just lift straight up and out. I don't know, we'll find out. All right, back at it. Yesterday I knocked out this side. I got this side all knocked out as well. Looking really clean and tidy. So the goal for today is to start on the fender well side, start drilling these spot welds out. All of these and these. Those and all of this, which is gonna require a ton of cleaning, super dirty job, but we gotta get it done. So I'm gonna get suited up and start grinding. That's what my day is gonna consist of. This is pretty nasty stuff, so you're gonna wanna wear some PPE. All right, I spent a little time prying this seam up and out of here. Just took a little bit of working with the vice grips, but I got it. And there it is, looking pretty nice. I went ahead and already drilled out all the spot welds on this entire seam right here. And this side should mostly be ready to come out, you know, aside from the floor pan, the trans tunnel, and then the little right here that go along the frame rail there. It's tedious, but we're getting there. So now I'm going to knock out this side. Little YouTube magic. Boom. There it is. All of the inside there is drilled out all the way up the side. These top sections here. Now we're gonna move to the underside of the car. The two deals right there. And then we gotta start pulling up all this sound deadening all the way along this seam here. So you can see a little spot weld sticking through here, and peeking through these holes there, you can see the frame rail runs kind of like this. So I know that I need to take at least this strip of sound deadening out, and probably this strip here as well. So I'm just going to take my heat gun, gets nice and warm. Then I take the 5-in-1 and kind of sinks in there pretty good. Boom, there's a big chunk removed. Yeah. Okay, I spent some time with the heat gun and the scraper, and then I went along with the wire wheel and cleaned up these seams as much as I could, to then come along with the spot weld drill bit and hit all of these little spot welds here. Frame rail all along the trans tunnel, and then all along the left-hand side of the car. That's pretty much it. It sure looks like it from here. Now, there's still a ton of glue and stuff all in these seams. This thing is kind of pressed in between, you know, a bunch of other stuff. All right, when you think you have all the spot welds drilled out, think again. I know this looks like tuna can peeled open mess, but I think that I have everything. This looks pretty loose now. All this stuff is all separated. See the daylight coming through down there. Frame rails are all separated. Trans tunnel. Take a good look. This is the last time you're going to see this chassis with a left-hand drive. Dang, this looks crazy. All right, there it is. Left-hand drive firewall has been removed. Dude, this car looks crazy now. This is nuts. Look at that. Pretty clean though. I mean, this is all kind of peeled back, but I think I'm kind of glad I did that. I can straighten it all out, but it should make it a little easier to go in with the new firewall. But I'm gonna have to clean up all of these edges, and then I'll hit it with some weld through primer. I'm using this Seymour galvanized coating spray gal. It says this stuff is pretty good, so this just looks nuts. Oh, I don't know why it's so funny, but it is, man. It just looks unreal. Whole freaking firewall just gone. Get it from this angle. Jeez. All right, well, now we can start cleaning everything up. Getting it all ready for this guy to go in here. So like I said, I'm gonna have to clean up the whole chassis, and I'm gonna have to clean up every single one of these surfaces. Top and bottom, all the way around, so it goes in nice and clean. But yeah, dude, pretty sick. Okay, so we spent some quality time with the wire wheel and the grinder, hitting all the seams inside the car, along where the firewall attaches to the car, underneath the car, and getting everything cleaned and prepped. And then I moved on to the donor firewall, cleaned up all the edges and stuff on there, and got it all ready to go for us to start doing this. Weld through primering all the different seams and stuff. So I'm gonna get spraying all this stuff all over everything. I'm gonna hit all these different seams. Once this is all sprayed down, we can start putting that back in there. I hear a helicopter. See it way up there. Okay, now that everything's all cleaned and prepped, I think it's ready to go back into the car now. So I'm gonna set you guys up and start trying to manhandle this thing back in here. All right, there it is. Definitely not in its final resting spot. You see the huge gap we have here and here, but I think the thing that's holding us up is these corner bits catching right here and over there. So once I get those wedged in there, I think everything else should mostly line up. But yeah, pretty good start there. Really almost matches. I mean, the same black paint on the engine bay. When this is all said and done, you might not even really know the difference. Let me do some massaging. I'll get this thing in here. All right, I got a couple clamps on the top, pull most of that stuff in. This side is gonna need a decent bit of massaging for everything to line up perfectly. I put a few of the pieces that we cut off back on to kind of test fit it, and everything's lining up okay. It's kind of all there. The main issue with this side over here, people will hammer these fender wells and stuff up and in. Well, it's not too awful. I'll be able to pinch that together and weld it, but it changed the shape of this a little bit to where not all this wants to line up real easily. So all that means is I just have to work the metal and get it to line up better. Not a huge deal at all. But this side really lined up well. I mean, it was a little hammered in, but I don't think they really hit it right in the middle to kind of pull everything in. So it's all mostly there though. The frame rails and stuff line up pretty good there. Kind of rolled this over and almost closed it up, but we're looking real good along the sides here. Again, you know, we're gonna have to close this gap in. But beyond that, like just clamping these corners here looks just like it should. Now that we got the firewall mostly in place here, I'm gonna do this little trick here and use some of these little tech screws to kind of screw all these different little seams together. It'll help close those gaps and stuff up. But before I can start fixing this thing permanently where it's gonna live, I need to double check some measurements. I'll put on the screen here what I'm kind of following from the factory service manual. It kind of gives you the dimensions that you need from a few different reference points, from the firewall to the front core support. I picked up this metric little tape measure here. So I'm gonna use this to make sure everything's all square and true and where it should be. So hopefully when you go put the rest of the body and stuff on the car, everything lines up like it should and you don't have a bunch of funky panel gaps. I'm gonna get to measuring, tech screwing, and then maybe we can start welding today. Looks good. Looks really good actually. Looks pretty dang square. Okay, I'm pretty happy where these top sections are sitting here. So I'm gonna go ahead and tack it in. Okay, so I've got this side mostly where I want it. I put a couple self-tappers in here. You can see that it really closed everything up really well. And I take these vice grips and kind of work on pinching this whole seam together. And it's coming together really nicely. I got another one here holding this down. And then I'm just temporarily putting this piece in so our spot welds line up where they should be, as well as this little cover plate here. Everything's lining up pretty nicely. So I'm gonna get this side mostly tacked where I like it, move over here, get this side tacked where I like it. Still have a little bit more massaging. I hammered this whole seam down and it's looking a lot better there. I need to get up underneath and hammer upwards a little bit. This looks kind of nuts, but it works. Got this seam all held together here, and I'm gonna run along all the little holes there, tack this thing together. Boom, weld it up. Nice and clean. Everything's pretty good. Obviously we'll go over with seam sealer, fill all that in and make it completely sealed from the outside, but just kind of learned this new trick. I run these tappers through there, makes a little hole between both pieces, and then I just weld the heck out of that hole, and it seems like it's doing pretty good. So I'm gonna knock out this last one, and I think we're almost finished with the outside of this corner. Move over there, knock that one out, and then probably move inside, start doing the seam. I don't know, we'll see. Clean. Well, here's how you know you did kind of a good job at least. These top panels, the gussets and stuff, are all just sitting there, including this inner one here that kind of creates the support between these two seams. It's all just squeezed in there, and all of the spot welds that I hit all line up really nice. There's none here because obviously this is a different cowl and stuff from the other firewall, but these are all lining up nicely. Everything is looking good. Man, it's starting to rain. It has been so freaking hot in Texas, man. All right, I've been hammering on this thing. We got this entire side on the outside all knocked out, welded. Came out really good, and everything measures out nicely. This side is more the same with all the spot welds landing where they should. Hood hinge mounting things lining up good. So now I need to move to the inside of the car. Before I do this big long seam, I gotta chip all this sound deadening and stuff out, run a couple self-tapping screws through to the frame rail, and I want to hit the frame rail and then do this last. And this thing should be pretty solid. I still have all these corner bits to weld in, but you can see from the backside she's sealed up tight, and that's without any seam sealer or anything. So I don't know, I'm pretty happy with it. It's coming along good. All right, frame rail spots are all cleaned up on the left and the right side. Now I'm gonna toss a couple self-tappers through. All right, I went hog wild with the self-tappers, hit every single different little spot that I could to try to tie this all together. It's looking pretty good, man. I think we're ready to start welding this inside out. That was an insane amount of welding, but we did it. All of the inside is completely welded, looking good. The whole underside is completely welded. The whole trans tunnel, everything's welded except for the caps here. But the bulk of the firewall is all welded into the car. But I'm gonna call it for today. That was a lot of welding. I'm pooped, but it looks good. Just a little bit more to go. Get these caps on here. Yeah, we got a little bit of rain last night. Kind of knock some of the heat off. It stays overcast like this, it'd be kind of nice. Good morning. So yesterday we got this thing up to the point, all of the inside welded, fender wells and all the seams and whatnot, all the main critical points welded. So now we're at the point that we're pretty much just working backwards from where we came. So we have all these pieces, this piece that's clamped in here, and then the remaining front pieces that go all along this. So that's the goal for today. We're gonna get the rest of the front end done. We're gonna kind of do both sides at the same time. I have this first brace piece in here, mostly all cleaned up. I left a bunch of the factory primer and stuff on there because it's going to hold up better than any of the stuff that I could spray on there. This cold galv weld through primer stuff does okay, but it kind of pops and makes a mess when you first, you know, strike your arc. This stuff's working fine, you know, it's sealing up. It's not all burning off, but you can kind of see the galvanized. If you've ever welded galvanized, you see this like film that accumulates on there. But I mean, it stayed mostly. But anyways, get this side tacked in, and then I've got this all clamped up and ready to go over here. Everything lines up really nicely. But this is the kind of the main strength tying piece, I would say, between the firewall and then like the strut towers. So I don't want to just take off welding that whole corner over there or this one over here without doing them at the same time. So we're gonna kind of do these, you know, back and forth to try to keep this from getting all tweaked or anything. That's it. We did it. This side completely welded out, looking real good, as well as this side. Pretty clean, man. I think that'll work just fine. So there it is. The front end's fully tied together now. Just gotta take the caps, cover all the rest of this front end up. So I went to town all over this thing with the wire wheel, cleaned everything up, prepped it. I primed all of the inside, got it looking nice. Still needs sealed, but good enough to stop rust for right now. But since everything's welded and primered and ready to go, gotta put this little brace for the firewall to the strut tower on, get that in. Then I can toss this big guy on here and then the front nose piece. But I've got both sides to do, so same deal. We're gonna go back and forth. Tack this brace on, tack that brace on, tack, 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 tack. There it is, all cleaned up, tacked in, ready for the next piece to go in. Like that. Nice. Let's get this next one. Boom. There it is, all sealed up, complete. Both sides. Looking fan-freaking-tastic. Real happy with how this came out. Looks like it all supposed to be there. So now that it's all welded in and primered, now we have to seal it all up. And to do that, I've got this seam sealer I got off Amazon, and this is some seam sealer I got from AutoZone. Both of them are white, both do the same job. But yeah, we're gonna hit all the different little spots, all of this on the inside. Everything on the inside gets sealed, and then the whole firewall, down the frame rails, all up in there, all up in here, all gets sealed up like that. Looks a little messy, but all the seals are completely covered in goo, all up in there, all down along the firewall and the frame rails on both sides. Looking pretty good. And then we hit the inside, all up in there, every seam, every place we welded, just put a little schmoo of goo on there, and it looks pretty good. Heck yeah, dude. Man, this this is looking good. Super pumped with how this thing came out. It was a ton of work, but it was super worth it, man. It looks really good in the end. Took my time with all the sealant and stuff, covered every little square inch of every seal on the inside as it should. Hit all up in here and up in there. Fender wells are all nice and good, sealed up well. Raul's gonna have to probably hammer this back over, but I just left it like as if it was factory for now. It's not gonna have any clearance issues. He still has to build this entire car. But yeah, I'm really happy with how it came out. I hope Raul's happy with it as well. Raul's a member of Drifting Bloom.
Lord knows I stay and I love it. Yeah, and I love it.
And they all rock this S13 two-tone seafoam. I think that's what this is. But I've always wanted to do this on an S14. But yeah, I think this is gonna be a pretty sweet little Silvia replica. All right, that's gonna do it for this one. See you next time.